Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this week's Stay Connected webinar. We are so excited to have Dr. Van Price with Lincoln Public Schools with us today. The name of her talk is I Appreciate You, the Power of Diversity. Dr. Price is the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and also the Human Resources Supervisor for Secondary Personnel with Lincoln Public Schools. And we just so appreciate your time and are very anxious and excited to hear from you today. Folks, if you don't mind introducing yourselves to Dr. Price in the chat, then she'll know who is joining us today. And if you have questions for her, feel free to type those as well, and we'll keep an eye in the chat for her. Dr. Price, thank you.
You bet. Well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation to join all of you today. As Kim said, I'm Van Price, and I happily work for Lincoln Public Schools, and I have since 1990. My background is all over the place. I was an elementary teacher with Lincoln Public Schools at 2 new schools, and then I was assistant principal and then principal at 1 new high school. So I always say I have K-12 minus the middle experience, but I kind of have the middle experience because I work with middle schoolers at my church, and I've discovered that I love every age of working with students, and I miss that in this new role, but I'm glad I get to still impact what happens in schools and what happens in classrooms. And so I first want to thank all of you for joining me. The after school personnel, that piece is so critical to so many families in Lincoln. When I was principal, we had our CLC after school program, we had clubs, we had all of those kinds of things that were really crucial for just expanding the minds of students in a different kind of way. And then also tapping into certain students who I am a believer that they were coming to school because they didn't want to miss some of those programs that were taking place after school. So it's really crucial to developing that whole student during the in-school hours, but then also those hours before and after school. So thank you very much. I'm going to, it worked.
Oh, we just lost her. I am sure she will be back in a minute, but these technical difficulties happen. So let's just be patient for a bit.
While we wait for Van to dial back in, I'll just say I'd put in the chat that, oh, there you are. Welcome back.
Let's see if I can do this again and do it right. Geez, I'm not sure what happened. Okay, let's try it again. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to hit at the bottom left. Okay. And I think, let's see if I can get the right desktop. I'm going to do share. Okay. Give me just a second here. I think I can get it, maybe.
It's always a little harder under pressure.
Yeah. Okay, do you see anything?
Not
We're
yet.
actually seeing your Zoom window.
Okay, here we go.
There, we got it.
There we go. Okay. Let's see if we can get this to.
Looks
All
good.
right. Can you see my opening?
We can, perfect.
Okay, excellent. So when I think about what we are going through in our country right now, I think that it's really, really important that we pause, take a step back, and realize that we are all in this together. And so when I think about the power of diversity, I think it's really about appreciating. I appreciate you, and hopefully we have more people that are willing to adopt that and really think about what that means. And so I hope today that I can talk to you a little bit about that whole idea of appreciating other people, and in turn, the power that is there when we really start to appreciate each other. And so I'm going to start with, this is actually a clip from Apple, and I'm not in no way trying to promote Apple, but I think this, the message is real clear in spite of the fact that it is a commercial advertisement.
Open. Open a door, and it opens all the others. Open a mind, and see what happens next. No great thing, no beautiful invention was created in a vacuum. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and come together. Embrace faiths, cultures, disabilities, differences. Embrace races, ages, ideologies, personalities, creating a tool or device nobody saw coming. Humanity is plural, not singular. The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out. So who we're made of is everyone. Differences not just celebrated, but essential. Many more women in charge. Equal pay for equal work everywhere. A new generation of Apple, more diverse than the one that came before. Open is not just who we are, but what we believe as a company. Because humanity isn't singular, it's plural. The truth is, we don't see things the same. The power is, we don't see things the same.
And so when we think about diversity, there's some information that I'm sure that you are aware of, is that our country is changing in terms of the racial and ethnic makeup, but also in so many other ways that also include diversity. But I wanted to just share this information with you. This graphic kind of shows you in the last 2 decades, the white population in the US has decreased about 9%. And then there's even a greater increase or decrease, excuse me, when you look at our younger folks, those that are under the age of 16 years old. So I always say, if everyone remembered to live as children do when they first arrived, we transform the planet. Because there's research and evidence that when we first arrive, we're not aware of or we don't show a propensity to any certain group or any certain person other than our parents, of course. But sadly, intolerance is a behavior that's learned quite early. And this information about the power of socialization is kind of startling, that at age 3 or 4, that those young people can absorb societal stereotypes from people and from media about other groups, and may show discomfort or fear, and may tease or refuse to play with others because of skin color, language differences, physical disabilities. But yet, at that same age, they have a strong sense of empathy and interest in fairness, and they can begin to develop critical thinking about hurtful images, comments, and behavior. So there's that juxtaposition right there within that age group, within that age range. And so I think it's really about what we pour into our youngest population determines what we see manifest itself as they begin to learn and grow in this country, but also all over the world. And so appreciating is the word that I really want to emphasize, because appreciating is diversity is about understanding each other, and we are moving beyond that simple ideal of tolerance. We are embracing and applauding the richness that is encompassed within each individual. It's being invited to the party and being asked to dance. So you're not just standing around as a guest, you are really a participant in that party. And that's what appreciating really is important to think about when we talk about diversity. It's also appreciating diversity is a critical step toward helping others feel a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging. That's a really, really crucial word. And I'm sure that some of you may have seen the diversity presentation that the city put on, it's probably been a week or so ago. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I walked away from that really even more convinced about the importance of belonging. So what is belonging? How do we really get to that notion of everybody in, nobody out? Because that's what belonging is really all about. Everybody in and nobody out. That sounds good, but how do we really get there? So I have quite a few favorite authors, but one of them is Brene Brown. She does a lot of writing about vulnerability. Here's what she says about belonging. It's the innate human desire to be a part of something larger than us. And also another part that I think is really critical as you read, I'll let you read this first. So that innate human desire to be a part of something larger, but then also true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. And I guess when I think about that, I feel as though some people in our country are more afraid of presenting their authentic, imperfect selves, because we have experienced rejection, or we have been told that our authentic, imperfect self is not good enough or is inferior. And so as a result, we can never feel that sense of belonging because we're missing that basic part of being able to present our authentic, imperfect selves. It's difficult for us to feel like, wow, I can let my hair down, so to speak. And so Professor Dr. John Powell was one of the speakers at the city's diversity presentation a week or so ago. And what he said really stuck with me. He said, belonging is beyond inclusion. So just thinking about the clip that I opened up with, humanity isn't singular, it's plural. And so he talks about, we are all contributing to the party. We are co-creating. You are welcome not as a guest, but as a full member. he talked about when you go to a party and you're a guest, you kind of stand around, you don't go in and move furniture or change the channel of the TV, but you do when you are co-creating in terms of that party. And then he talks about it calls forward the best of us, deep and profound expression of our shared humanity. It's a journey. Belonging definitely is a journey. I am because you are. I can learn from you. That's what belonging is really all about. Kind of like that clip at the beginning talked about, the truth is we don't see things the same, but the power is also that we don't see things the same. Difference then is not a deficit. And I think that's going to require us to reshift and rethink what we've been indoctrinated, I would say, to believe about certain people within our country. So I have a friend, when I was a high school principal, was very good friends and still am with one of the other high school principals, Sue Casada. And one time she sent me this quote on a postcard, and I had seen it before, but it is one of my favorite quotes from Wade Davis. Other cultures are not failed attempts at being you. They are unique manifestations of the human spirit. The world in which you were born is just one model of reality. So it's my goal to encourage other people to embrace this truth for themselves, to recognize the fullness that really exists in every individual, and to realize that every interaction with someone who may appear different from ourselves, that's really our opportunity to learn and to grow. And I personally believe that that's where my greatest learning and my greatest growth has come, in those personal relationships, those personal connections with people who are different from me. Their experiences have been different, and I can really recognize and accept, there are some things that they've experienced that I haven't, and so I can learn and I can grow from getting to know them better. So I think that's really crucial. So just another clip for you to think about. So thank you, Nike, for that message, because I think it's very appropriate in the season that we're in. So in order to appreciate that the diversity that shapes our human experience, we need to start somewhere. And we're all in different places in terms of where we need to start. But there are just 5 things that I always tell folks when I talk to them about this work and about making a difference and about being really serious about diversity and appreciating diversity. Because we could be serious about the facts about diversity and that our world is different than it was 10, 20 years ago. But we really have a choice about whether we're going to embrace and appreciate that diversity. And so how difficult is it for each of us to enter into a courageous conversation with ourselves? So do that honest self-reflection. And honest is the key word, because I think sometimes we pretend or we don't let on with other people. But I think unless we're able to have that courageous, honest self-reflection with ourselves, we're not in a place that we can grow. And then what risk is involved in asking those questions of oneself that may cause discomfort? This work is messy, it's uncomfortable. And for some reason in our country, we have not mastered, with lots of educated people, lots of people that are smart and able to do a lot of things, we have not figured out how to be comfortable with talking about diversity in our world, and particularly in our country. And so I think we have to realize that it's not comfortable. So we have to be able to embrace that discomfort. And then how are we challenging discriminatory attitudes and practices? We have to be willing to challenge those, because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So each person challenges. So if everyone would get on board, all in, then we could really make a dent in what we're going through right now in our country, and what our country looks like as we continue to become more diverse. How am I advocating for those who are marginalized, oppressed, or disadvantaged? How am I using my privilege to be an advocate? That's really what that is asking. What can I do? Because most of the folks that are listening to me today, you do, whether you realize it or not, you are living, there's a certain amount of privilege that comes. And so how am I advocating for those that are marginalized, oppressed, or disadvantaged? That would be a question. And then recognize that sense of urgency. Does this create a sense of urgency for me to step outside of my comfort zone? Do I realize the urgency of now? Or am I putting off, shifting to someone else, shifting to this party or that political party or that leader or this leader, thinking that someone else is going to change the world, my city, my neighborhood? So what are you going to do is really that question. So thinking about that, I think the most important thing here is you reveal your character when you stand apart more than when you stand with the crowd. It's uncomfortable, especially I think when you're around people who don't necessarily get it, don't necessarily want to get it, and don't feel like they have to get it. How is it that you can reveal your character and be able to stand apart rather than stand with the crowd? That's definitely not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult. I think sometimes as an administrator at a high school, I would preach that to students, and realizing myself, being a middle-aged woman, how that's still difficult sometimes, and watching how difficult that was sometimes for our young people, but realizing, we have to, that's who we really are, is when we are able to stand for what's right, even when it's not popular. So I'm going to come back. What questions do you have?
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you're muted, or you can type in the chat.
Dr. Price, thank you very much for your presentation. It is so nice to hear from you. I'm curious, what are you reading right now, and what would be a couple of books that you would suggest for us to consider or continue this conversation?
Excellent. I happen to be reading a couple of things this summer. Um, so, so principals in Lincoln we become real close because we experience a lot of the same things. And I always tell people running a high school is, it's like you have to do it to understand it, really. And so you develop good friendships. And when I moved into this role in human resources, I was blessed to be able to work with all of the secondary principals. Some of them I knew because they were feeder schools for North Star, which was my high school that I was at for 16 years. And so I got to know them in some kind of way. We talked about, as things started to unfold this summer, the middle school principles of title buildings. And title buildings, for those who may not know, are buildings within our district that the free reduced lunch is 50% or higher, and then it's probably the most ethnically diverse schools in the district. And we did a Zoom, and those ladies just said, you know, what can we do? What can we do? And one of the things we started to do was read White Fragility. So this would be one that I would recommend. This particular Robin DiAngelo is a white female who writes about what it's like to be white in America. This one's, and so after we read and did a book discussion as principals, as leaders in the district, prior to me accepting this role, I contacted Dr. Joel, our superintendent, and said, oh my God, you should read this book. And now our exec team district office is reading this one as well. So this is one, I've read it a couple times this summer, and then I'm rereading it as we do a book study here at district office. And then another one that I'm reading that's going to also be a book study for later this year is So You Want to Talk About Race. And I have not read this one, but I heard that this one is fabulous. I've read a few things, and it's a very quick, easy, just real, just down to earth type. It's not anything that you're going to have to say, okay, now what did they just say, and reread it again. It's a very comfortable read. So these are the two. Like I said, I've read bits and pieces, and that's kind of what I do usually with books, is I'll jump all over the place. I'll read and say, okay, that sounds like kind of an interesting title for a chapter. So I might read the 5th chapter before I start at the beginning. And so that's kind of what I've done with this one. And it's a very easy read. So these are the two that I am reading professionally right now. I have some other books that I'm reading. Let's see, just other types of stuff. But these are kind of two that I think relate to the work that we're doing right now, and are very, this one is very appropriate for what we are as a nation going through. And I think that's probably why has been kind of difficult to find it in, because it's sold out a couple different times. So those are just a couple that if I were to make some suggestions for you.
If you're
Anybody else?
interested in finding either of those books, I did put links in the chat, so you can save that chat and look for them later if you want to.
And I'll just add that Sandra had put this into the chat, but there should be around 375 people that attended the Get Connected After School Conference that have the audio book, The Other Wes Moore.
Oh, yes.
And that is,
Yes.
we are going to continue the conversation with those folks as they progress through the book, and really encourage people to take the time that receive that link to make sure that they're listening to the book. But it's the author, Wes Moore, wrote this book about two young boys that grow up in Baltimore and had very similar backgrounds. and the author ended up being a very successful businessman. He's a veteran, he's a Rhodes Scholar, and there was another young boy also named Wes Moore, about the same age, that is in prison for life for murdering a police officer. So hopefully there'll be lots and lots of people starting some really great conversations around diversity.
That was one of the ones that we have on our list to do as a group this year as well, the other Wes Moore. So thank you, Jan, for saying that one. It's a good one.
Dr. Price, thank you so much for your presentation. This was great. I was curious about, you said you were in human relations right now, or human resources. I was curious about your reaction to the federal administration's proclamation about or restriction on diversity training now, and how you guys are handling that, or ignoring it for now, or what you're doing as a grant program, as a federal grant program recipient. We're struggling with how to handle that right now.
Yeah. So as of right now, we are doing what we've always been doing. And even when that proclamation came down, it was even more important to me, I think, that we continue this work. My mom used to always say, if you're doing something right, someone's going to be talking about you. And so I kind of feel like the fact that came up nationally is perceived as a threat, but if you don't have to be, in my opinion, very in tune to realize, when you look around at what's going on in our world, how much and how important, it goes back to what I was saying, is how important it is that I appreciate you, and that you can say that and point to someone who's different than you are. And I think until we are really truthfully able to do that, we're going to continue to spin around in this circle. And unfortunately, we're in a bad spot in terms of just the richness that exists in this country. I don't feel like we're taking advantage of it. And until we do, we will be hurting, which is what's happening now. So yeah, it has not changed my life one iota, but even made me more determined. So we even talked about that in one of our sessions when we were doing a chapter in this book with the executive leadership team, about how important the work is.
Great.
I usually share my background with people. I'm the product of my parents' divorced when I was 5, and I grew up in Omaha, and my mom was a single mom of, I had 3 brothers, so there were 4 of us, and I can't remember a time when she didn't preach 2 things to us: love God and get your education. And she said those 2 things will take you farther than anything else. And she has since passed away suddenly a few years ago, but I told her over and over again, thank you, because those are the 2 things that have really impacted, I think, and changed the trajectory of my life, is education and then loving God. So.
Great.
Well, thank you all very much. Nice.
Anybody else have any other questions? Or we've gone over a little bit, but thank you so much, Dr. Price, for your time today. You've really given me a lot to think about, and books to read. And I know we will all be continuing this conversation. You're welcome to join in anytime.
Thank you very much. And thanks again for the invitation. I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me another chance. And I apologized again for a couple weeks ago. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us today.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Remember, if you want to download the chat, the 3 dots to the right of the chat is where you can save that on your computer, so you have the links.
Oh.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks for joining.